At Low Water by Rebecca Chamlee and Flora of Mughal India by Radha Pandey explore important developments in the ways we observe and perceive nature. Let's enter into the luscious pages of these books to discover a personal story of sea creatures and a global story of plants and aesthetics. Rebecca Chamlee is a book artist, printer, and writer. She has published as Pie in the Sky Press since 1986. Frequently collecting and cataloging the natural world, her books examine the intersections of her artistic and scientific interests. At Low Water is an intertidal memoir that looks back to the beginnings of Chamlee's passion for exploring and observing native species. This book skillfully braids together multiple layers of text and imagery. The spreads alternate between two main voices. The first voice appears in the poem on these translucent sheets of kozo paper. It is written from the perspective of Chamlee as a child, discovering the many wonders contained in tide pools. In the narrative text, the second voice recalls the creatures that Chamlee brought home to a saltwater aquarium in her childhood bedroom. With great enthusiasm and little regard for compatibility, she collected anything from the tide pools that was unlucky enough to be captured by her bare hands. The poem overlays images of the intertidal habitat. When we lift the paper, we get to see a close-up picture filling the entire spread. This action echoes turning over rocks and shells in a tide pool to discover what is below. The plates alongside her recollections feature images of animals. Chamlee made field trips to tide pools near her home while making At Low Water. She photographed and identified all of the species we meet in the book. Chamlee includes the scientific name of each animal mentioned in her recollections as well. She also notes the location of each full spread photo on the page preceding it. It's a lot of information to take in at once, but Chamlee effectively uses various typographic and design techniques to keep it organized and accessible for the reader. The animals in the images, narrative memories, and poem don't align one-to-one. Rather, they crisscross each other to present a broad view of Chamlee's interests and experiences as a budding self-naturalist. These sentence fragments, however, pull snippets from different parts of the poem. They are the only place where the world of the poem crosses into the space of the narrative memories. Chamlee's vivid descriptions in the narrative memories bring alive the many intriguing animals she brought home from the sea. The pure curiosity and joy of discovery in the poem is a positive counterbalance to the fates of these creatures in the home aquarium. All of this text was letterpress printed from hand-set type, and the images were created with color-separated polymer plates. Chamlee's process embodies her dual scientific and artistic methodologies. I was intrigued to learn that she keeps extensive journals for each of her projects. She keeps field notes while researching and collecting images and data, tracks how she works out ideas and makes decisions, and takes detailed records of her production process. The greater significance of Chamlee's discoveries rises to the surface in At Low Water. In one story, she recounts how a predatory brittle sea star devoured a beloved baby opal-eye fish. The aquarium in her bedroom allowed her to directly observe the harsh realities of nature, which are typically out of sight. This was a profound lesson learned in the seclusion of my girlhood bedroom. There is neither good nor evil in the natural world. As we near the end, the tide rises again. Chamlee's final memory humorously recalls how her mother came into her room. Ivy growing on the walls, a filthy wet dog, and a pervasive marine odor from the aquarium, her mother observed that the room appeared to be returning to the earth. I delight for that child. the opportunity and space she had to explore her curiosities with depth and passion. The sea creatures are once again covered by the tide, protected from those inquiring hands. However, this book isn't quite over. Chamlee includes her detailed field notes from research trips to tide pools for this book. This information is more raw data than the poem or memories, but it's full of striking information. In these field notes, we get to see what Chamlee's childhood passion grew and matured into. The final anecdote describes how she ended up sharing her wealth of knowledge about the intertidal zone with passers-by. She humbly ends the book, describing herself as a casual naturalist. In addition to the artist's book, this deluxe edition of At Low Water contains a suite of prints featuring the animals she photographed. It also includes a chestnut cowrie shell, sustainably collected during the period of making this work. The prints and shell invite us to join Chamlee in observing and appreciating these intertidal organisms in even greater detail for ourselves. Radha Pandey is a book artist, letterpress printer, and papermaker specializing in Indo-Islamic papermaking. Her artist's books regularly draw from natural history and ecology, as well as her own perceptions of the natural world and its fragility in relation to human existence. Flora of Mughal India examines the significant shift in manuscript design and the aesthetic representation of nature during the Mughal Empire between the 16th and 18th centuries. The subsequent influx of European power and commercial interests had major impacts on the art of the book in the Indian subcontinent. The book's structure, bound by American binder Adam Bryant, reflects these distinct cultures coming together. The left side is bound as a Western codex, and we read the text left to right. But the right side is bound as an Islamic manuscript, where the images are meant to be read right to left. Opening to the foil stamp titles, we can see the Western side is plain, while the Islamic side features gold foil on the delicate paper cut. This design was hand-cut by Ram Soni Ji, one of the many master artists in India that Pandey collaborated with for this book. Pandey begins with a concise introduction to the Mughal Empire, a once dominant regime in Asia with an expansive economic empire. It was under Mughal rule that the rich style of miniature painting came together from previously varied forms. The images, texts, and layout design in Flora of Mughal India took inspiration from the Islamic manuscript tradition. The patterned border, frequently seen in Islamic books, was inspired by the tomb of the 16th century Akbar, a significant patron of the art of the book. 9 flowers are at the heart of Flora of Mughal India. All are originally native to the Indian subcontinent. 3 texts accompany each flower. The italicized words are a personal narrative, typically describing things like sensory delights and some historic uses. The text at bottom gives a concise historical overview of the shift in aesthetics. It begins with the development of Mughal floral portraiture and book culture, which glorified nature and beauty. Each flower is also accompanied by couplets written by the poet Ashok Lal. These are printed in Urdu, with transliterations in Hindi and translations in English. They speak directly to each flower, adding to our sensory impressions. Gold foil motifs also accompany each flower. Pandey designed these as wayfinding symbols because, as we may recall, we are simultaneously reading both Western and Islamic formats. For the Kachnar, this leftmost text page corresponds with the pink flower on the right, and this jasmine image corresponds with this interior text page. The foil motifs offer a gentle key to help readers not accustomed to moving back and forth between right reading and left reading books. Pandey honors the Islamic manuscript tradition not only in design, but also in the production of this book. In the Mughal Empire, numerous master craftsmen would contribute their specialized skills to create manuscripts. Pandey also collaborated with many contemporary artisans spread across India, Norway, and the US. This hemp paper was handmade for the book by Hussain Paper in Rajasthan. It is made with the same process as in the 14th century and reflects the type of paper used by miniature painters in the Mughal courts. Furthering this collaborative model, Pandey printed a base layer for each flower from wood-engraved blocks. These were then painted over by miniature painter Jai Prakash Lakwalji, who is based in New Delhi. The traditional hand painting adds intensely rich detail to each flower represented. They are far from photorealistic images. Rather, they capture a living essence and stunning appreciation for each flower's detailed and unique beauty. The narrative history shifts with the tulip, so heavily associated with the Dutch, but actually a native plant to northern India. Up to now, this historical text explained the aesthetic world of the Mughals. Now we learn the effects of European influence. The luscious ostentation and indulgence in beauty and its representation was gradually replaced by depictions that were no longer packed with information, but represented on plain backdrops. Pandey describes how the European focus on botany and commercialization of plants changed the way Indian artists worked and represented plants in their imagery. At the same time, the book forcefully raises and centers the Mughal and Islamic manuscript traditions. These are the dominant aesthetics and ideas that are presented and celebrated in the personal narrative, the couplets, and the exquisite paintings of each beautiful flower. At low water and Flora of Mughal India layer remarkable amounts of information with carefully researched and developed imagery. Looking back at significant moments and perceiving and developing relationships with nature, they offer us a broad look at important histories, both personal and global.